They say family always comes first, but sometimes family puts you last. I'm Margaret Whitmore, born in 1948 in Cedar Falls. Back in 2019, at 71, my children thought they could erase me from their lives like chalk on a blackboard. I felt invisible, forgotten. But then something happened that changed everything. Today, at 76 and living my best life, I'm finally sharing this because every grandmother deserves respect, and sometimes you have to fight for it. The morning started like any other Tuesday in my little house on Maple Street. I was watering my petunias when my grandson Danny came bounding up the walkway, his backpack bouncing against his 12-year-old frame. "Grandma Maggie," he called out, using the nickname that always made my heart flutter. "Mom says I can't come over Saturday because of Uncle Marcus and Aunt Linda's anniversary dinner." I paused, the watering can suspended midair. Anniversary dinner? Danny's face scrunched up in confusion. "Yeah, the big fancy one at Riverside Gardens. Mom said the whole family's going." He tilted his head. "Aren't you coming too?" My stomach dropped like a stone in a well. Marcus, my eldest son, hadn't mentioned any anniversary dinner. In fact, just yesterday he'd called to tell me their dinner plans were canceled because Linda was feeling under the weather. I forced a smile for Danny's sake. "Oh, of course, sweetheart. I must have gotten my dates mixed up." After Danny left for school, I sat in my kitchen staring at the phone. 43 years of marriage to Harold, God rest his soul, and 38 years of raising Marcus and his sister Patricia. Surely there was some misunderstanding. I dialed Marcus's number, my fingers trembling slightly. "Mom, I told you yesterday Linda's sick and we canceled everything," Marcus said, his voice carrying that impatient tone I'd grown to recognize. "We're just staying home, maybe ordering pizza." "But Danny mentioned." Danny's confused. You know how kids are. The line went quiet for a moment. "Look, Mom, I've got to run. Big presentation today." The dial tone buzzed in my ear like an angry wasp. I called Patricia next, my daughter who lived across town with her husband Robert. "Anniversary dinner?" Patricia's voice pitched higher. "Marcus didn't mention anything to me about an anniversary dinner. Are you sure Danny got it right?" But something in her tone felt off, like she was reading from a script. Patricia had always been a terrible liar, even as a child. When she was 7, she'd stolen cookies from the jar and blamed the dog we didn't even have a dog. I spent the rest of the morning pacing my living room, Harold's photograph watching me from the mantelpiece. "What do you think, honey?" I whispered to his smiling face. "Are they really planning something without me?" The answer came that afternoon when I ran into Dolores Martinez at the grocery store. Dolores worked at the same accounting firm as Patricia, and she was practically bursting with excitement. "Margaret, how wonderful about Marcus and Linda's anniversary celebration. Patricia's been talking about it all week. She's so excited about the surprise they're planning." Dolores beamed. "Riverside Gardens is such a beautiful choice. You must be so proud." My blood turned to ice water. "Yes," I managed to croak. "Very proud. Patricia mentioned they're doing speeches and everything. Such a lovely family tradition." Dolores squeezed my arm. "See you Saturday night." I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. They were lying to me. My own children were lying to my face, planning a family celebration and deliberately excluding me. The woman who had changed their diapers, walked the floors with them during fevers, sacrificed my own dreams so they could have theirs. That evening I called Danny's house. When he answered, I kept my voice light and casual. "Sweetheart, what time is that dinner on Saturday?" 7 o'clock, Grandma. Mom bought me a new tie and everything. She said it's really important because they're doing toasts and Uncle Marcus might cry. Danny giggled. Adults are weird when they cry at parties. After hanging up, I sat in Harold's old recliner and let the tears come. 47 years in this house, 47 years of Sunday dinners, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, and graduations. I'd been the one to babysit when they needed date nights, the one to provide down payments for their first homes, the one to take care of Harold during his final illness while they were too busy to visit regularly. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Riverside Gardens and spoke to the manager, Lewis Hartwell, an old friend from Harold's Rotary Club days. Margaret Whitmore. How lovely to hear from you. Lewis's warm voice filled the phone. I was just thinking about you and Harold the other day. Lewis, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. I took a deep breath. Do you have a reservation for Marcus Whitmore this Saturday night? There was a pause. Well, yes, we do. Party of 8 for 7 o'clock. Anniversary celebration. Is everything all right, Margaret? Party of 8. I did the math quickly. Marcus, Linda, Patricia, Robert, their 2 children, Danny, and someone else. But not me. Never me. Everything's fine, Lewis. I was just checking on something. My voice cracked slightly. Would it be possible for you to add one more to that reservation? Of course. I'll make it party of 9. Will that work? Perfect, I said, feeling something shift inside me. Something that felt like steel replacing the hurt. And Lewis? Let's keep this between us for now. I want it to be a surprise. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel sharper, more alive. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting the navy blue dress Harold had always said brought out my eyes. My hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been all week. I'd spent 3 days planning, 3 days making phone calls, 3 days preparing for what would either be the most humiliating night of my life or the most liberating. At 6:30, I drove to Riverside Gardens, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird. The restaurant sat nestled among oak trees, its warm lights spilling golden rectangles across the parking lot. I recognized Marcus's silver sedan immediately, parked right next to Patricia's blue SUV. They were all here, my entire family, celebrating without the woman who'd given them life. Lewis met me at the entrance, his kind eyes filled with concern. Margaret, are you absolutely sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I squeezed his arm. Just give me 5 minutes before you seat me, all right? I peered through the restaurant's front window and there they were, gathered around a large round table decorated with white roses and flickering candles. Marcus sat at the head, raising a glass of wine, his face animated as he spoke. Linda laughed, her hand resting on his arm. Patricia and Robert flanked them, both dressed in their finest clothes. The children, Danny and Patricia's daughter Emma, sat between the adults, looking bored but well-behaved. And there in the 8th chair sat Harold's brother William, whom I hadn't seen in 2 years. Uncle Bill, as the kids called him, had driven 3 hours from Springfield to be here. Everyone had been invited except me. 5 minutes are up, Lewis whispered behind me. I straightened my shoulders and walked into that restaurant like I owned it. The hostess, clearly briefed by Lewis, led me directly to their table. I watched their faces change as they spotted me approaching, confusion melting into panic, panic hardening into guilt. Surprise, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet dining room. Marcus shot to his feet so fast his chair nearly toppled. Mom, what are you? How did you? Sit down, Marcus. I pulled out the empty 9th chair Lewis had quietly added and settled myself between Danny and Uncle Bill. Hello, William. You look well. Uncle Bill, bless his heart, looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Margaret, They said you couldn't make it tonight. Did they now? I placed my purse carefully on the table and smiled at each of their frozen faces. How interesting. Because I distinctly remember being told this dinner was canceled due to Linda's illness. I turned to my daughter-in-law with mock concern. You're looking remarkably healthy for someone who was too sick to leave the house. Linda's face flushed crimson. It was a misunderstanding. Oh, there's been a misunderstanding, all right. I accepted the menu Louis personally brought over, his presence lending me courage. But not the kind you think. Patricia found her voice first. Mom, we can explain. Can you? I set down the menu and looked directly at her. Can you explain why you lied to my face? Can you explain why you thought I wouldn't find out? Or better yet, can you explain why you didn't want your mother at your brother's anniversary celebration? The silence stretched like taffy. Danny, sweet boy, reached over and patted my hand. I'm glad you're here, Grandma Maggie. Thank you, sweetheart. At least someone in this family still has manners. I signaled the waiter. I'll have the salmon, please, and a glass of your best Chardonnay. Marcus cleared his throat. Mom, look, we thought. You thought what? That I was too old? Too embarrassing? Too much trouble. My voice remained calm, but I felt the power in it, the authority I'd forgotten I possessed. Or did you think I was too stupid to figure it out? It's not like that, Patricia whispered, tears starting to form. Then what is it like, Patricia? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my children decided their mother wasn't worth including in their lives anymore. I took a sip of water, letting that sink in. Tell me, when exactly did I become disposable? Uncle Bill shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should go. No, William, please stay. You're the only one here who didn't lie to me. I turned back to my children. Do you want to know what I've been doing this week? While you were planning your secret celebration. They stared at me with the same expressions they'd worn as children when caught in mischief. Except this wasn't mischief. This was cruelty. I've been making some changes, I continued. You see, I realized something important. If my own children don't value me enough to include me in their lives, then perhaps it's time I stopped organizing my life around them. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I've sold the house. The words hit the table like a bomb. Marcus's wine glass slipped from his fingers, sending Chardonnay splashing across the white tablecloth. You what? Patricia gasped. I sold the house. To the Hendersons down the street. They have 3 young children and they'll fill it with laughter again. I smiled serenely. The sale closes next Friday. But Mom, Marcus stammered, that's our family home. Our inheritance. Your inheritance? I laughed and it felt good, cleansing. Funny how you mention inheritance now, when 5 minutes ago you couldn't even invite me to dinner. Linda leaned forward. Where will you live? I've rented a lovely apartment downtown, walking distance from the library where I'll be volunteering. I pulled out another document. Speaking of which, I've donated the proceeds from the house sale to establish the Harold Whitmore Memorial Reading Room at the public library. The color drained from both my children's faces. And this, I said, producing a final paper, is my new will. Everything I have left, my savings, my jewelry, Harold's life insurance policy, it's all going to Danny and Emma's college funds. They're the only ones in this family who still treat me like I matter. Patricia burst into tears. Mom, please, we're sorry. We made a mistake. Yes, you did. A big one. I stood up as my salmon arrived. But here's the beautiful thing about mistakes. They teach us who people really are. I sat back down and cut into my fish with deliberate precision. Louis has been kind enough to comp my meal tonight, so I'll be staying to enjoy it. You're all welcome to continue your celebration. But I thought you should know this is the last family event you'll have to worry about including me in." The rest of the dinner passed in stunned silence, broken only by the quiet sounds of silverware and Danny's occasional attempts at conversation. When dessert came, I ordered the chocolate cake and savored every bite while my children sat frozen in their chairs. As I prepared to leave, I kissed Danny and Emma goodbye, shook Uncle Bill's hand, and nodded politely to the rest of them. "Goodbye," I said simply. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." 6 months later, I'm writing this from my sunny apartment, where Louis visits twice a week and we're planning a trip to Europe. The Harold Whitmore Memorial Reading Room opened last month with a beautiful dedication ceremony. Danny and Emma were there, beaming with pride. Marcus and Patricia call regularly now, begging for forgiveness, but some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. I've learned that respect isn't given, it's demanded. And sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who need to learn that lesson the hardest. Moral lesson. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to walk away from those who don't cherish us, opening our hearts to discover the beautiful life waiting beyond their shadows.